Focus on that conversation for just a moment longer. In addition to what Rita has just told us in her story, we know about the president's efforts last week, taking it a notch higher with a new strategy on countering violent extremism in the country and indeed in the region. And we now speak to Ambassador Martin Kimani, who's a special envoy for countering violent extremism, up a notch from being the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start by talking about, your thoughts on Mombasa. Response time was much faster, but it also it points to a new trend, doesn't it? Women being involved. And this is not the first attack or attempted attack we've seen on a security installation.
No, it isn't. And in the course of the attack, which started at about 10 this morning, and the 3 women came in pretending that they were coming to report a crime. And then they attacked the police officers, and thankfully the police officers reacted very fast and were able to neutralize the threat before they could really cause more harm. It's not the first attack on our security officers, and I think we're all praying for their quick recovery. And I think this is one of the things that Kenyans need to see, is that it's a kind of war that has no frontiers, and our police officers and our security officers are under a very high degree of risk. All
right, and what does it say about a change in strategy, a change in tack? And are we responding? Do we understand now that they're changing their strategy, and are we keeping up?
I think we're keeping up, and I think our pace of adapting to their challenge is accelerating. Globally, the recruitment has moved beyond, initially it was very male, it was very young, and now you have more women participating. And in other parts of the world, like Syria and Iraq, we're seeing the use of children by Boko Haram, for instance. So these people have no limits about who they want to use and who they want to recruit.
Okay, so let's talk then about the new strategy. You're now spearheading that. What can Kenyans expect in the war on terror? How different is it from what we've been doing before? You were heading the National Counterterrorism Center. You're now special envoy. How does that enhance the war on terror?
Well, first of all, it's not a different job. I'm still working at the NCTC.
Yeah.
I think number one is that Kenya has always had a prevention strategy as part of its counterterrorism. But President Uhuru has sought to take that up a notch. And the idea is that we have invested in traditional approaches. We've invested, as I've told you before, in technology, in the skills of our security officers. But we want to do more on prevention. And simply put, what this strategy is a prevention strategy. And what it does is that it understands terrorist organizations to be decentralized and highly connected networks. And therefore, the way you're able to challenge them in terms of prevention is to involve as many people, as many institutions as possible, so that we ourselves are also decentralized and networked in the way we react to them. And so this strategy doesn't belong to the security services. It belongs to Kenyans. It belongs to different parts of government, to the private sector, to the NGOs, and to religious leaders.
And how can they all engage now that you're saying it's more decentralized?
Yeah. Well, first they can engage by, I think, beginning to engage with us. We are looking to talk to all credible actors, people who have skin in the game, who really want to do something, who have a track record in speaking and changing the negative dynamics in their communities. But even beyond speaking to us, we want people to organize themselves. This is our country, so you don't have to organize with me so as to do something. But what is very important is for the efforts to be connected. So even if we're not doing it with you, we want to know what you're doing, because we may be able to help you in either countering radicalization or appealing to young people, to women in a particular way.
Okay, and being a special envoy, of course, enables you to then engage better on an international platform?
Yeah, I think so. I think President Kenyatta's intention is basically to allow us to connect our local and national challenge with a global challenge, because this is a challenge that goes well beyond Kenya's borders. And so it's my job to be a voice for Kenya's efforts and to try and find out how they connect most productively to other countries' efforts. And in this regard, I'm proud to say that this strategy is the first such strategy in Africa. and one of the few in the world. And it's already been being implemented over the last few months.
Okay.
And I think one of the most promising things that has emerged is how to assess the risk from people who are getting radicalized.
Okay, and you know, now that we're talking about it, you know, linking up with what's happening internationally, we have to talk about 9/11, which is today 15 years later. You know, that changed the world. It changed the strategy, the approach, and the war on terror. How do you think the world has changed since that attack that took place 15 years ago? Are we learning? Are we getting better? After that, there was, you know, just increased vigor. Osama bin Laden was killed. And then in comes ISIS.
Yes. Well, one of the great tragedies, of course, is that Al-Qaeda started its murderous spree here in Nairobi in 1998.
That's right.
And the sort of ambition of that attack and its attempt to reach maximum body counts was what we saw in New York on 9/11. So when it happened in New York, I think to many Kenyans, it was, we have seen this, we have been here before.
Right.
To put it simply, and I know we don't have much time, when Al-Qaeda attacked the United States on 9/11, they were based in Afghanistan. Today, if you look at a map of the world and see their affiliates, they have been spreading, with one of them being Al-Shabaab. So it's a problem that has had trillions of dollars thrown at it. Some of the world's best militaries and police forces, and yet the problem has grown. And it is to Kenya's, I think, Kenya has suffered a great deal, but we have managed to begin to reverse their ability to attack us. We're still at risk, but our experience is actually going on the opposite side with the rest of the world. I think we're doing a better job. But frankly speaking, what is needed most of all at this point, I think, is a more determined global order against this particular phenomenon. And I'm looking forward to being part of that conversation.
Great, thank you. That's a good place to leave it at that. Ambassador Martin Kimani, thank you so much for making the time to be with us on Checkpoint. He's the director of the National Counterterrorism Center and now Special Envoy for countering violent extremism, even as we continue with the war on terror, remembering today's 9/11 and the attack that took place in Mombasa earlier today. And we look forward to your efforts and of course, the work that will be done in terms of decentralizing the war on terror. Now,